urban mobility. My focus is mobility, urban smart cities. My focus is mobility. I selected the topic because I think mobility is one of the major challenges to avoid climate change. It's one of the major contributors. It's also one of the major challenges in urban environments. Mobility, it's on the one hand a human right, let's say, of freedom, part of freedom. On the other hand, it's a big problem and a challenge. And by creating the Drivery, I thought to try to really condense experts and all the knowledge and experience we have in the area of mobility, put it under one roof and accelerate by synergy. This was the whole idea. I saw so many people that have great ideas and a great vision, but too much distributed, even within a city like Berlin. And I wanted to bring them closer together, and that's the idea of the Drivery. It's today the largest marketplace for mobility innovators in Europe. We have 700 startups members in our place, 130 startup companies, and we are growing now beyond Europe. And I'm looking forward to reach out to Asia as well, of course. It's a hard thing as well to connect Europe and Asia, and that's why also Asia, Berlin is the perfect place to be.
And what does smart city mean to you as a mobility expert?
Well, a smart city is for especially a city that is worth living and is serving the needs of the people and not needs of anyone else. So, and it needs to be smart to handle 20 million people in such a small space you mentioned, for instance, and it needs to be smart to cope with that challenge. And what it means exactly, okay, we'll discuss in detail.
Great. Cool, thank you, Timon. I'll now alternate between our physical panelists and online. So I'd like to give the floor over to Thao to introduce herself and also what her interest in this topic is. Let's see, this is always the challenge with hybrid events.
Hello, could you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Right, great. I feel like it's my third time doing the hybrid version already, but I feel like I'm still missing something. I see the two empty chairs there, and it should be one for me and one for Kasia, I guess. Is that right, Travis?
Exactly. Yeah, we're keeping the seat warm for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here. My name is Thao Tran. I am Program Manager of New Energy Nexus Vietnam. So just a very quick introduction of New Energy Nexus. It's started from California in 2004, and it started to have chapters around the world. Now we present at India, Uganda, China, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, New York, and California. What we do is very much supporting diverse entrepreneurs to thrive and grow in clean energy sector in the country. And our vision is to encourage 100% green and clean energy use for 100% household in the country. So very much we do support startups from early stage, support students, support young professionals. We support startups with prototype to validate their business modules. We also support growth stage startup to match make them with potential commercial partners in Vietnam. We have already, I think, worked with several startups in Canada and USA where they trying to develop the market in Vietnam, and we help out in terms of getting them connected with the market, know about the market, connect with mentors, connect with potential partners and clients over here. So great to be here today and share with you more. And the challenge from Travis, what does it mean to me by saying smart city? So in Vietnam and Asia is very much anything smart is related to digitalization, and we are very much under or not yet developed or developing countries. So we still have a lot of problems with transportation, traffic jam, a lot of problems with monitoring the energy use, and so many things else. So when we talk about smart city, we talk about the city that's been having a lot of technology development actually integrated into the monitoring system for the city to watch over the transportation, to watch over the environment management, the crime, and I would say urban security. So it's very much about digitalization for the whole city itself.
Thank you, Thao. Okay, now back on stage to Eric.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm representing the Smart Infrastructure Hub in Leipzig. Leipzig is a city like 1 hour south of Berlin, actually, so it's easy to travel there and come back and go. Come to Berlin, but also go to Munich in 3 hours, and Frankfurt, and so on. And this is maybe one of the first statements. There's not only Berlin in Germany, there are a lot of smaller cities that are very good in different topics. So for example, in Leipzig, we decided for energy, smart city, and health. And this is where the city is pretty good at. And this is why we have established a Smart Infrastructure Hub, where we combine different activities. So one of them is actually our accelerator, SpinLab, which is frequently ranked among the best in Germany. We have a fund called Smart Infrastructure Ventures, where we invest into startups in these sectors. There's a research activity, there's a huge space. So at the moment we have 2,000 square meter space, but we're going to expand it to 5,000 to 6,000 square meters soon. And hosting a lot of startups there, not only from Leipzig, but like nationwide, but also European startups. We also had some startups from Asia before. But coming back to your question, what actually is a smart city? I think a lot of very important things have been mentioned already, especially the digital and the technology aspects. What I want to add at this point is that for me, a smart city definitely also means that the city can bring to its citizens. And for example, it might be smart or clever, however you want to translate it. It might be simply smart to have like a green stripe through the city, which brings in the fresh air during the summertime into the city. Because the wind is blowing through the city. So you don't need any technical solution for this, you just need a good city planning. And this is also a very important aspect, which is sometimes a little bit underestimated into the smart city sector, because the main goal is to have lively cities that are enjoyable for people. And there are several ways to achieve it. One is digital technologies, one is other technologies, but also like a good city planning.
Great, and we're going to get into that topic in a bit, so thank you for setting the tone there as well. Last but of course not least, I'd like to pass it off to Kasia to give an introduction to herself.
Great, thanks a lot, Travis. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sound great.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, first, thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure to be able to share some of my experience here in Vietnam and emerging Asia. I'm very happy to say that I can join virtually, but I would prefer to be in Berlin. Germany is close to my heart. I did my PhD in Heidelberg, as the DCAF said, in cancer research, so I'm a bit jealous of all of you sitting in Berlin right now. But I would be calling in from Da Nang, Central Vietnam, which is where I co-founded and I am the director of Evergreen Labs. We set up shop here in 2016 with the mission to solve pressing environmental and social challenges facing emerging Asia. That includes mainly Southeast Asia, but also South Asia. We decided to tackle these issues through creating social businesses for long-term impact. And we have built 4 operating social businesses to date, and we will continue to build out new solutions, social businesses on our own, and also together with future ecopreneurs. We're really active right now at the moment in solid waste management, which is what I think my particular role on this panel is today. In particular, plastics and recycling is where we're heavily focused on, and have developed our own social business and social franchise around circularity and plastics management. I think to get to your question about smart cities, I'm not sure if I would consider this the right phrase to use for emerging Asia. I think I would take a little bit more of a holistic approach. When I think of smart, I would perhaps rephrase this as maybe innovative with a focus on circular design. I think technology and digitalization can always be there to support, but it's not necessarily the key for a city to be smart. I think it more comes from emphasizing local supply chains, supporting local businesses or economy, and adapting potentially global solutions that already exist, but in a local context that would fit here in emerging Asia. So I guess I see it a little bit more holistic than the other panelists.
Great, thank you. That's awesome. I think, I wanted to also, now that we've had every 4 panelists introduce themselves, something I learned from Derek, we can have a nice round of applause for everyone for joining us. Thank you for traveling here physically and virtually. And as you can see, the definition of smart city, and especially how it relates to sustainability, is broad, touching on everything from crime to urban planning to mobility to waste management. So there's a lot of topics we could discuss, but since we're also talking about sustainable smart cities, and we have some amazing experts on a few of these topics, I wanted to kind of frame the discussion around 3 of them, and that's mobility, energy, and then building and infrastructure. Of course, as we heard, there's also civic and societal and other elements that make up a truly innovative city. But since these aspects also create most of the greenhouse gas emissions in cities, that's what I thought we'd frame the discussion on today. And we're lucky to have so many amazing experts on these topics. So I would kick it off by focusing on this topic of mobility and ask Timon, maybe some of the, Germany is well known for its automotive industry, right? It's one of the prides of the country here. But there's obviously a huge growth in automotive and mobility in Asia and China. Is Germany's kind of legacy and like pride in automotive like holding it back from Asia in creating new ways of mobility, or are we able to keep up?
Very, very interesting question. Having such a large and famous history in mobility and automobility is definitely on the one hand nice. On the other hand, it's also a challenge. And one thing I learned while staying in Asia, it's a big difference if you plan urban environment and infrastructure, including mobility, if you have a legacy or if you have a greenfield. And what I really saw in Asia, that Asia has the opportunity in many ways to make greenfield approaches. And I was impressed that there's often a very clear vision, a master plan, and a high efficiency in execution. Especially in those countries I've been, I've also know Southeast Asia might be a little bit more difficult. But in those countries I stayed, I really have seen the vision, the master plan, and a high efficiency in execution, because there was not that legacy that holds back. There was not need to change from car to something different, and there was simply nearly nothing to something great. And what I also saw that the acceleration that was causing this vision and the people who had this clear, for 20 years, we want to be there in 20 years with our city, and how it was executed was impressive. We, from our side here in Germany, we have a legacy. We feel kind of, we are mobile already, but somehow it's not working, and we have not a clear idea for the future with having this legacy always in mind. We are very difficult for setting a clear vision for a city, for executing a master plan, or defining it and executing a master plan commonly as one effort, right? All the time someone is against something because it's change, and change is dangerous, and change is uncertainty, and change, if you change from something that is there, you appreciate it, to something else, it's more difficult thing, yeah. And that sometimes frustrating. I think all of us in the city, also maybe like Berlin, how to get rid of the legacy, the fragmentation, and get on with the master plan that makes things better. And I think we come to that later, that energy, that everything is connected, interconnected. Smart means high complexity, interconnectivity, and we need to get our master plan together, right? So that's a bit what I learned from coming from Asia. It's not only a benefit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's great. Thao, do you feel like that Asia as a whole is more better able to adapt to these new mobilities, or is it more just specific regions that can do what Timon said, to roll out new mobility options that are easily adopted, or is there still a barrier to adoption in Asia?
Well, there's a big difference within Asia. I think everyone who traveled in Asia sees the difference. I spent a lot of time in Japan and in China. What I've seen there is very impressive, especially in China. Cities have been scratched on the board and have been executed within 20 years to a mega city in a speed that is breathtaking. Not everything has been made right and perfect, but it has been made, yeah? And there's progress, and it was impressive, to put it that way. One thing I was a bit sad to see, because it was a funny story aside. When I came to Asia 20 years ago, there was a lot of bicycles everywhere, and everyone want to get rid of bicycles. They were proud to replace bicycles by cars. In Germany, we already said, okay, cars are bad, we need to go back to bicycles. So that was a very funny experience to see how the trends go against each other. So I said to Asians, stay with the bicycle, it will come back. You have a merit here, no? So
yeah, can I get a perspective from our Asian panelists? Is the bicycle there to stay? Is it still a race to join the automobile class with the kind of rise of the middle class in Asia?
Hi, sorry, Travis, is this question to me?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. I just got the internet drop for like few seconds. All right. Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I wish that Vietnam could come up soon with any regulation from the government. The motorbike thing, the e-mobility is still a big problem with us right now. It's very difficult for us to change from the regular mobile or like motorbikes system to the E1, like EVs. One of the initiatives that we could learn very much from is the Indonesia. So our Indonesian team just shared that the government actually promote the regulation of changing from regular motorbike to e-motorbike. And they actually do it national, right? However, when I read the news and when they heard it, I'm like, oh my God, I wish that Vietnam and Thailand could do it anytime soon. We should have that policy actually put out by the government so that we can go for it. However, the Indonesian citizens face the fact that the fee, the cost from change from regular motorbike into e-motorbike is very costly. Would say like $700 to change one. So if they just give more like $20, they can have the new motorbike already. So why not? So there is a lot of challenges over there. There's not many shops or stores actually do the changing because the fact of profits. And for lithium battery, there is no. We do have some manufacturers in Asia, but we do actually own that technology in each Asian country to actually promote a cheaper price for lithium battery, and it's another obstacle for us to actually promote the whole economy, where we have everybody can use e-motorbike, and those are the challenges.
Travis, can I share quick as well?
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, so we're not in e-mobility anymore, but actually when Evergreen came to Vietnam in 2016, we were working on a market entry project for a German e-mobility company to enter Vietnam in particular. And we found out some very interesting cultural challenges as well. So one of them being the design of these particular e-bikes were quite feminine. So Vietnamese culture is very much around motorbikes. That's their main life and blood. So they really care about how they're perceived, and the type of bike that they have also can share sort of their wealth. So there's certain classes of bikes. So when we presented the bike into the market, we were actually shocked because they said, no, I won't drive this. It looks like a feminine bike. It looks like, and Thao, I think, agrees. And it actually stylistically, we hit quite a barrier, which we weren't expecting. And then the second big challenge we had was also the understanding of battery technology. So we were trying to match up the battery technology actually production in Vietnam with industrial parks, particularly high-tech industrial parks. But the Vietnamese government didn't recognize the battery technology to be high-tech enough. So we actually couldn't make the connection and actually start production here, because by law, at that time, it could have changed now, but at that time, the battery technology was not high-tech enough. So I think there's a few kind of cultural challenges that we also observed in the very early days of e-mobility. And the last one, just quick, also about the noise. So the motorbikes, the e-bikes obviously are quiet. And in Vietnam, that's quite dangerous on the road, actually. So people don't feel that comfortable driving e-bikes because you could get in a much more dangerous accident if you're not heard. In this country and most of Southeast Asia, everything's quite loud. So that can be a risk. In particular, these e-bikes are often seen as for like university students. It's kind of more like an electric scooter and not really a proper motorbike. They drive quite slow and on the side of the road. So I think these are all things that weren't maybe initially considered, definitely by our partner, and we discovered on the way.
Those are really interesting insights. Thank you, Kasia. Thao, you had something?
Can I add something?
Please.
Apart from the challenges, we also have potential and opportunities. So as Kasia said, just touching on touch base on the e-bike, we do have some initiatives in Vietnam and other countries also to start promote more e-bike usage in a citizen area or a small city or just tech park, high-tech park. We do have those initiatives going on, or in university. In Hanoi, I would say is the capital of Vietnam, would say from now to 2030, the government is trying to ban all the motorbike usage within the city itself. So there is a very good opportunities for a number of startups in e-bike starting to grow up. And we do have those startups. So we're working with them, and they're working with the city and so on, and they start their projects, get it ready and go. We also have few model of smart city around the country, and they also promote e-bike usage in the country, and few high-tech park in the south of Vietnam. It's the same thing. So e-bike is something I think it would be a very good opportunity for any startup want to develop in Vietnam.
There you go. Any startups out there looking for a new market for their e-bikes, go to Vietnam. It seems like the policy, the policy conditions are right there, and if you can solve the I want to touch on one more mobility topic before we move on, and that's autonomy. Autonomous vehicles have been seen as the kind of saving grace of moving people and goods and things around cities. Are we there yet? Are we close enough for it to actually have an impact on sustainable on cities being more sustainable? Could it be a solution here in Germany or in Asia? Is any region more kind of advanced in that than the other?
Yeah, I think especially in Germany and maybe in all over Europe, there are a lot of projects, and I definitely say projects because it's single usages. So it's very prepared, it's very structured. So there's a clear conditioning of the infrastructure. There's a clear use case. So this is not real autonomous driving. So this is using autonomous technologies, but in a very limited way, I would say. And so, for example, there's one project in Leipzig. This will be a driverless bus, which will be included in the public transport. So it will be an official public line, also with 70 kilometers per hour, which is normally not allowed, also not without a driver, or especially not without a driver. But in this case, okay, it will be allowed. But this is a very regulated and single project, and I think there are dozens and maybe hundreds of them all over Europe. But it's very far away from the vision of autonomous driving people have. So it's not really like, okay, there are private cars circling around in the street, and whenever you need them, you can just book them. I think we are maybe not so much technically far away from that, but organizationally and also from the regulative perspective, we are quite far from that. And there are a lot of different questions to be answered, also some part of ethical questions. So for example, there was a survey in Europe and in Asia asking, okay, if the car had to decide, or the algorithm had to decide, in an accident situation, if it has the accident with an old mother or a young child. European ethics would most likely, or at least the answers in the survey were, the algorithm should decide to save the young child and have the accident with the old wife. In Asia, it was completely the other way around, because there's much more focus on family. There's much more, mother loving, you know,
respect for
respectful with your family, with people who gave birth to you, and so on. And this is a very, very interesting cultural question, because especially in autonomous driving, these algorithms have to decide somehow. And this is also a question of autonomy from a political perspective, because if we import autonomous driving from US or from Chinese manufacturers or these algorithms, we also import the ethical perspective that are covered in these. And I think this is a very interesting question for the future that have to be answered. But asking now, I think it's going to be a longer way to autonomous driving, or fully autonomous driving, than some people hope today.
Yeah. Any thoughts from?
Yeah, maybe one additional thought. I agree that autonomous driving level 5 is definitely 10 years away from now, as we imagine it to be. There might be some minor use cases. But what I wanted to mention is, because we're talking about this smart city and urban environment, many people think that autonomous driving will solve a lot of problems we have here. And I need to clearly disappoint. Driving might get safer. It might get maybe cheaper, but it might not solve traffic issues we have, infrastructure issues, parking lots, the fight for space. If an autonomous driving car is standing in a traffic jam, or a car with a driver, is not making a big difference. It's still a traffic jam. So there are use cases that are very interesting. We have a startup in the Drivery. They operate a fleet of teleoperated cars already in Berlin. So that's an intermediate step to fully automated. They have some interesting use cases. You can call your car, it comes to you by a remote control teleoperated driver. Very interesting things. But it will not be the solution for all problems we have in urban mobility, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I think autonomy is very interesting from the perspective that it's a lot of times it is also seen as just people transport, but I think also the transport of goods and services and things that people are now using combustion engines to transport things around cities can be replaced by autonomous vehicles of any small, big sort. But yeah, I think the consensus is it needs a lot more urban planning to make that happen, and that we're pretty far out on that horizon to actually mitigate climate change. But just to finish up on that topic, Thao, Kasia, maybe there's some examples of autonomy that you'd like to highlight in Asia that have been specifically impressive for either of you?
I'm no expert on this, so Thao, I don't know if you have something to share, but I don't have any examples.
Yes, I think that in Asia, to be honest with you, I haven't heard of any actual autonomous system has been in place yet in any city or any in planning. I think part of it is that the challenges in terms of transportation infrastructure we only have few cities in Asia very modern and very I would say with a lot of technology, very good road infrastructure and so on, then those can actually implement the autonomous driving system. But for the other majority of the city, the infrastructure of the transportation of traffic still very poor. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon going to be a good condition for autonomous driving. And we still need to have a lot of tests in terms of, we're just applying technology step by step. Now we need to develop, let's say, getting the city more greener by having more e-mobility vehicles. Probably we get more highway, we get more like underground constructions done, and then we will think of the autonomous driving system. Yeah, but not yet, as far as I know.
Okay, so another opportunity for for startups in Asia and Germany to go to Vietnam and Asia and help with autonomous driving. I'd like to kind of transition a little bit into our next topic. I think we could wrap forever on these really super interesting mobility topics and how they interact with the cities. But the other important thing that Kasia touched on earlier is batteries and energy and the actual consumption of energy in cities. So getting clean and renewable energy into cities is one problem, so creating more clean and renewable energy. But one of the bigger problems there is once you have that energy, it's about managing it, distributing it, creating flows within the city to make sure that clean and renewable energy is used in a sustainable way. I'm curious, Thao, since your company is based around energy, have you seen some examples in Asia or anything you'd like to highlight? Any problem in this area of energy management and flows that is particularly good or bad that you think that our colleagues here in Germany can learn from?
Yeah, I have muted. Yeah, sure. I can share a little bit on what we have been trying to do in Asia. Most of the chapters and the cities we have presence of, and we do have some initiatives from startups to try to solve the problem. So basically, we still have problems with. Let's talk about Philippines or Indonesia or Vietnam. We still have problem with energy access, where we're trying to bring the renewable energy to rural area or any remote area, and our grid condition is not so capable of providing all the capability to do that efficiently. People still, in short of very, very much having the shortage of access new energy. We also have problems regarding technology and owning the technology itself and being smarter with the innovation. We still have the skill gaps though. Even though we know that we have certain, people have certain innovations in terms of smart grid or trying to integrate any new technology with the grid. Like at the moment we are talking about virtual energy management, virtual power plant. It is very new thing in Vietnam, and people start to talk about it, right? But we still have the skills gap in Vietnam. We still need to have a lot of training, a lot of learning, a lot of sharing from any successful module already done in Europe to learn about it and to actually implement it in Vietnam. Reason why virtual power plant is such a hot keyword nowadays in Vietnam and in also other countries like Thailand, Indonesia, China, and Philippines is that we have problem with access. We have problem with getting more renewable energy to everyone. We have problem with giving and bringing renewable energy, let's say solar power, wind power, wave power to every single household, like little and single household rather than big plants. So people talk about virtual power plant and they think it's the new future. So there is a gap there that, if you have any interest and you can come to Vietnam or any Asian country, then we can talk about that further.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, maybe that's an opportunity. Eric or Timon, do you know of any examples in Germany that could be adapted to bring rural, clean and renewable energy to rural populations?
Yeah. So I honestly think that especially the energy sector is one of the few sectors where Germany still has a leading position in innovation. So people are maybe not 100% aware of it, but I mean, we have actually a very, very secure energy provision. So, I mean, who do remember the last energy breakout? So don't know. I mean, it's maybe for some minutes, and this is an exception if you look all over the world. And actually, we have quite cheap energy as well. If not, the state would put so many taxes and costs on it, like the EEG, which will also be most likely changed with the next legislation. So energy will be, now is very expensive, but not the energy production itself or the energy part itself, but only the state surpluses. And there's a lot of innovation in this sector. So we still can be proud that we actually invented most parts of the photovoltaics technologies. We invented very important things in battery technology. Unfortunately, we lost the production to Asia, which is kind of strange, but still we have this huge innovation capacity. And Thao mentioned it, for example, virtual power plants. I mean, Next Kraftwerke was founded nearly 10 years ago. There were the second biggest virtual power plant and the third biggest virtual power plant placed in Leipzig. One is energy to market, which was now sold to EDF. One is clean energy sourcing, which is now BayWa Renewable Energies, so also good exits. Who have these massive virtual power plants already in place. So this might be technologies, and how we can talk about it, that are adaptable in Vietnam. And for example, now we are inventing the next step with a startup from us. So the problem with the virtual power plants is that you have a central algorithm and a central calculation. And if you add one additional point in this virtual power plant, a consumer or producer, then the central machine more or less the server has to create the new links to every new machine, so it ends up in an exponential growth of the links that have to be calculated. So for example, now we have a virtual power plant, it's called Energiekoppler, we have a decentralized virtual power plant where all the producers and the consumers are connected to each other, so it's a kind of blockchain, you could say. But this is the next generation, so you can add up smaller plants, you can add up more plants into one virtual power plant. And I think these are technologies that are easily adaptable in other geolocations as well. But still, we have to say the technology, or at least the invention, frequently comes from Germany. Maybe not the innovation, because we are sometimes missing the commercial part, or others are maybe more efficient, better planning, better master plan, I don't know, more execution, which is kind of a problem. And the next step, I'm pretty sure, will be the hydrogen technology, because this is actually, if you look, we always talk about the Energiewende, you know. Actually, from a technical perspective, it's more than solvable already with existing technologies. We have photovoltaics that are able to produce energy at the cheapest level, and I don't know why people are still talking about nuclear technology, because even if you produce new, smaller, safer, whatever plants, it will be more expensive than photovoltaics. There's no cheaper solution than photovoltaics and wind energy, and then you can use the hydrogen technology to in a so-called electrolyseur to use the overproduction when you have a lot of wind and sun to produce hydrogen, which can be stored, and you can use the German gas infrastructure, which is massive, to transport it all around Germany. So this will be one of the major drivers in the Energiewende and in the German energy system. So for example, in Leipzig, they are now opening a new gas power plant, which is already prepared just to burn hydrogen, because you can use a lot of this technologies, the pipelines, the storages, and adapt it to hydrogen. And I think this is already out there. So it's possible already. We just need to finance it somehow. That's the one point. And we just need to adapt the system. But I'm pretty aware or pretty sure that we can make this.
That's a really interesting point. Thank you for the segue into hydrogen. It's a big, obviously it's been a kind of a buzzword in Germany for the last couple of years. A lot of automotive talks about using it for automotive, but I think it's really a good point to say that there's a much broader use and probably a better use for hydrogen than automotive.
I mean, this is one thing to add. I mean, a lot of people connect hydrogen with cars, and I think this is maybe not too relevant as a use case, because in a car you can easily use an electric battery, and I'm pretty sure with the next generations of batteries you also have the capacities to travel higher distances or longer distances, and there's no need to really use hydrogen in that cases. But there are other vehicles where it totally makes sense. For example, trains, airplanes. So it won't be possible to use batteries in airplanes because it's just too heavy. There are ships, for example. So I mean, at the moment they still burn crude oil. Or most of them, some of them gas, which are the more modern, but you can also burn hydrogen there, and then you have a climate efficient ship, and you won't use batteries, I guess, in that cases.
Hydrogen powered airplane sounds really cool, actually.
Possible, yeah. We had an event, there's some innovators, they have hydrogen powered airplanes. It's a bit tricky because you're in a very sensitive environment, but it's possible, yeah.
Wow, very cool. Just to kind of stay on the energy topic a little bit, and Kasia, if you have anything you'd like to add, please jump in. I feel like I haven't heard your voice in a while. Electrifying buildings is also one of the best ways we can reduce greenhouse gases in cities. And as Timon said earlier, there's a legacy problem in a lot of European cities in that we have very old cities. I wouldn't say that it's different in Asia. There are very old cities in Asia, but I'm curious if you have any strategies for better electrifying buildings and getting them off of dirty power sources such as gas and coal. Maybe Kasia, do you have is this an area of expertise you'd be willing to talk about?
Not in particular, but I can share just maybe some high level stuff. I think Asia is more open to adaptation, and what was already said was bang on. I think there's a lot of solutions and innovation coming particularly from Europe and from Germany, but the adaptation of it in the local context is often where this fails. And I think Asia in particular, and in Southeast Asia, the countries are really willing to uptake these new solutions, but there needs to be proper implementation and local partnerships on the ground for it to be successful. So I think when looking at green buildings, there's new regulations. I was just in a GIZ green building seminar for Vietnam last week. There's a lot of work being done and a lot of green building certifications taking place now. And it's definitely not only just a trend, but it will be the future of buildings in Vietnam, which is a great sign. But again, there needs to be a bit more adaptation of these great innovations that we have seen in Germany, for example, into the local context to really push countries like Vietnam even further into more sustainable territory.
Great. Any other thoughts about electrifying buildings, getting adaptation of new technologies in the built environment from a German perspective? Any strategies you've seen that have really worked besides top-down government force?
There's two things I can add. I was in my intermediate life, I was doing a lot with IoT technology, Internet of Things, and enabling smart buildings. There's an opportunity inside that you can use existing buildings and upgrade them and make them smarter. The way you use energy, the way you utilize sun from outside, lighting is a big topic still. We have a tremendous amount of legacy lighting still in our buildings. So there's a lot of things that digitalization can do, and connectivity and putting some intelligence into a building. On the other hand, we have also a big problem because the owner of the building is not the one living in the building or working in the building. So we have a disconnect between the people who need to pay for it and who have the benefit. And this disconnect of interests and effort slowing down the process. So you need at the end, I'm afraid, the market will not do it like that. There's a in the market. So we need the government to put something on top, even though I'm not a fan of strong legislation and putting rules, but I think the market will not do it themselves at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I mean, I think Kasia touched on it as well, that you need to go through the whole value chain when it comes to buildings as well. Not only the owners and the tenants and but all the way down to the contractors who are actually, the electricians who are actually installing things, they need to be on board. Are there any, you said, Kasia, that the kind of acceptance of innovation is a bit higher, you think, in Asia than in Germany. Are there anything you've seen that's been successful that Germany can learn from to getting this entire value chain on board with innovation? Or maybe, Thao, you have some thoughts on this as well?
I can give an example where it didn't work, but then I think there's some lessons learned. Is that good?
That's great.
Okay, so not to be a Debbie Downer or anything. No, I've seen actually a lot of success stories of innovation transfer coming to Asian countries. But I just want to share, in particularly in the infrastructure waste management sector, where I often see big ticket projects coming in, building large, for example, waste processing, recycling facilities with German technology. One in particular comes to mind, multi-million-dollar project. And the technology is amazing. It's the highest tech solutions out there, everything from infrared ray sorting to also processing lines and the highest tech you can imagine. Problem is this factory failed completely was because they didn't contextualize the solutions or the tech at all. And what I mean by that, and particularly for waste, I think it's a really clear case. In Asia, in particular in Vietnam, but it's similar throughout Southeast Asia, the waste composition here is much, much different than it is in Europe or in Germany. So currently in most Southeast Asian countries, there's no household source separation happening at all. So the waste is actually very wet. We have almost 70% organic waste here versus dry waste, which is basically the inverse of what you have in Germany. So when you started to put this very, very wet waste into this beautifully designed high-tech solution from Germany, it pretty much broke the machinery, right? Because they didn't consider this contextualizing their solutions and adapting it to the local context, and that actually kind of broke the system. So I think when I'm looking at bringing innovation here, I think that's the most efficient and the best way for us to make this transition quickly. But you really need to contextualize what you're trying to do and adapt it properly to the local context. It's not to say that those solutions couldn't have worked here, but not doing that homework beforehand actually set them back not only a few $1 million, tens of hundreds of millions of dollars. So I think that could be avoided, and actually those solutions are very much welcome and needed, but of course they need to work. Yeah, so maybe a bit of a lessons learned, not a Debbie Downer, but takeaway to know your market and know the ecosystem before you try to bring your innovation here.
That's a very great point, and I think that's exactly why we're all here, to discuss and learn from each other. And I think, yeah, these solutions can be global solutions, but always need to be adapted locally to the local built environment, the local culture, and everything like that. We have a few minutes left. I wanted to just, in case there's any burning questions in the audience, just raise your hand and shout it out, and I can repeat it for the panelists. Just wanted to take a moment and see if there's anything that someone was really, yeah? Oh, here's a microphone for you. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. Okay. Oh my God, it's so loud. So hi everyone. My name is Anna. I'm not in the energy sector or anything from this sector. It's just I want to share about Philippines. I'm originally from Philippines, but I am living in Europe for quite some time already. And regarding with the smart cities or smart hubs, etc. The problem with that is not just the adaptation, but the cost. For example, Philippines is very rich in all kinds of energy. We have solar, you can even have hydro, you can have even wind. But the problem is, who would like to invest? we need people who will invest for that to make it happen. There's a lot of real estate companies, those are tycoons for decades, no, for generations already, or ever since they are born tycoons. But they're the one only who can make it possible. But it's only for monetizing for themselves, for the rest of their generation. The electricity is so expensive. So how you can have the smart city if it's expensive? I paid 1,000 euro for a month of electricity there. When I was living there, I paid 1,000 euro. And in Slovakia, where I am based originally, I paid only 90 euros for water and electricity. And they're just water, just electricity.
Okay, so yeah, how can we drive the price of? Thank you.
For the solar panel, basically, for the solar panel, is that something that a German companies would like to invest for starting an affordable solution for solar panels for water energy or such?
How do we drive the energy prices down in the Philippines?
Well, it's a good question. I'm not an expert of the Philippines, and I don't know why the solar panels or the solar energy should be so expensive over there, because actually the production should be very efficient. So there must be some kind of import issue. I don't know, with the supply chain, maybe there's a toll on it. I have no idea about the Philippines in that case, but I'm totally aware that you can produce kilowatt hours for some cents. I don't know why it adds up to several hundred euros over there. There must be some state influence, some toll on this. I couldn't imagine something else.
Thao, do you have any insights into the energy sector in the Philippines and why it's so expensive there?
To be honest with you, for this question, I probably will note down and ask my colleague in Philippines further for more details, because I'm not I don't know why the solar price in Philippines is so high also.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing the concern to our attention. We'll try and get some answers to you, and I guess you can follow our panelists on Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever, and we can hopefully get you that answer. As we only have a couple minutes left, I'd like to just end the panel by having each panelist, we talked about built environment, we talked about energy, we talked about mobility, and as we mentioned at the top, there's also a lot of civic and people-related issues. We can't leave people out of cities, right? So what can we do as people? What is kind of one call to action maybe each of you can give? I'm going to keep talking a little bit so you can think about it. What is one call to action each of you can give to the people in this room, the people online, to engage in and help make their cities more sustainable and more intelligent and innovative?
Well, there's one thing I'd like to give out. It's embrace change. Don't be afraid. It will not hurt anyone, but just try out. Don't question everything. It doesn't need to be perfect at the beginning. Let's learn together how to make the city better, human-centric, and it needs a bit of daring and a little bit of trying, and not being afraid of change is helping a lot. So that's my little takeaway.
Yeah, I would say it's very important that people adapt and test new technologies. So if it's out there, like Germans sometimes are a little bit resistant, and risk averse. Maybe it's the devil put into a machine, yeah. And this is a problem, I would say, that it's not very open. You should at least test it. And if you take the e-scooter, you test it and you find out, okay, it's not the best way, or for me to travel, or it's unsecure or whatever. Then just don't do it, but at least test it. It's the same with solar, with batteries, and so on. So there needs to be more willingness to change and adapt. And the other aspect is, I would also say it's very important to make useful sense of things. So taking also the e-scooter example, or also bike sharing. I really don't understand how these things can be thrown into the rivers and I mean, with the batteries on the e-scooters, they just put it into the spray or wherever. I really don't understand why people do this. And if we really want to make a positive change, we need these new technologies, and then we should take care that we also use them in a sustainable way. And it's not about using a car sharing provider from time to time, but then going everything by car. You know, it doesn't make sense just because now it's greener or more sustainable to have more consumption in that way. Yeah. So we really have to think what makes sense, and we should test it.
Great, thank you. So everybody who hasn't done so yet is going to take an e-scooter home from this event, okay? Yeah? Okay. Thao, any thoughts from you on how people can be more engaged in creating sustainable smart cities?
Sure, yes. I have one thing only, and this is the one that we have been trying to build in Vietnam and in other Asian countries. It is let's collaborate and let's connect. We hope to have a robust ecosystem where we can, having all the stakeholders to shake hands together and build a better community, a better ecosystem for clean energy. And we need more hands from all of you, from other, more innovations to Asia, more innovations to Vietnam and other countries, because that's what we are looking for.
Great, thank you. More innovation to Vietnam. Let's go. And Kasia, finally, last words.
Yeah, last words. Okay, let me try. I think very simply, be a more responsible citizen. By that, I mean everything from responsible consumption and purchasing, but also if you're able to choose if you want to live in a green building. I think all of these small decisions can actually break down a lot of barriers for market entry, for businesses, and for change to really follow suit. Just as a quick last statistic, I was in a green building seminar, and it was mentioned that I believe over 60% of Vietnamese currently living in LEED certified buildings in Ho Chi Minh were not even aware they were living in a LEED certified building and what that meant. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for consumers and citizens to take action into their own hands and make those choices, because they can really have a huge impact.
Great, that's an awesome way to end it. So we just need to keep sharing the love, talking about it, understanding our environment. And thank you all for giving your wisdom to this group and to this network. And I hope we have a great rest of the day. So thank you all.
Thank you, Travis, for the great moderation. Thank you.
I learned a lot as well. So.